Thank you very much, Sonny, and the Shriver Center, especially its board and its staff, John Bowman, and all the others who have invested in this great effort. I also want to thank Maria Shriver by long distance for that wonderful letter. It made me feel so important that I'm thinking about running for governor of California. But this has been a great night up until now. I did wonder why every time the photographer took a picture of me tonight during the reception, he took my glass of wine away from me. I thought at first, well, maybe they just want to make sure I'm sober when I get up here tonight, but it suddenly dawned on me after living for 4 years in Evanston, which I did as a graduate student at Northwestern. I'm keenly aware that that is the national home of the Women's Christian Temperance Society. And so I thought possibly that had some influence. I should put my cards on the table. I went to a little Methodist college out in South Dakota before I came to Northwestern after the war, and they had the strictest rules out there you can imagine in terms of trying to keep us free from sin. No smoking, no drinking, no social dancing. It's even said that they finally came out against sexual intercourse because they were afraid it might lead to dancing. My father was a Methodist minister, and for the first 9 months after I came back from World War II, I thought about following his footsteps. So I was a seminary student for 9 months and finally decided that I better go back to my original plan to be a history professor. And I enrolled at Northwestern, went all the way through to a PhD. That was done under the GI Bill of Rights, one of the most marvelous programs the federal government has ever underwritten. When people say to me, well, the feds always screw up everything, I say, what about the GI Bill, which educated 14 million young Americans coming back from World War II? Tom Brokaw says that we were the greatest generation. I don't know about that. I'm willing to take part of the honor, but I think that Washington and Jefferson and Hamilton did pretty well in their time too. But I want to say seriously, I don't get to Chicago very often these days. In the shadow of Northwestern University, that had it not been for the GI Bill that enabled me to go through that great university, there's no way I would have been a United States Senator for many years and the Democratic candidate for president. The GI Bill is responsible for that. Now, of course, that's enough to convince some people the GI Bill was a bad idea, but I thought it was wonderful. Anyway, that's enough religion and education here tonight. It's especially a pleasure for me to receive this award because it stands for the promotion of equal justice for all. And we asked this question here tonight, who cares about justice and about poverty if actions speak louder than simply speaking or sloganeering, then nobody cared more about poverty and justice and opportunities for people than Sarge Shriver. It's always seemed to me that he was the most enthusiastic and most inspirational person, the most committed individual to whatever he was doing of anyone I've ever known. I've known a lot of wonderful people in my life, including many here in this city, like Judge Mikva and Bill Singer and a whole string of people who are here tonight. But in terms of genuine enthusiasm and commitment for the task at hand, and I might add genuine optimism, Sarge always thought whatever he undertook, he'd achieve. And he wasn't always wrong about that. So I'm just delighted to stand here tonight with an award that bears his name. Sarge and I were colleagues in the war on poverty, even before we ran for national office. I was hard at work in the early 1960s as President Kennedy's Food for Peace director, at the same time that Sarge was leading the Peace Corps, one of the brightest and most dynamic initiatives of the Kennedy administration. He went on, as we know, to lead the war on poverty for President Lyndon Johnson. And I want to say a word about President Johnson here tonight. Everybody in this room knows that I differed with him on the war in Iraq, but I came to realize in later years that nobody had any more grief and carried any heavier burden for that cross in Vietnam than President Johnson. He agonized over that war day after day, night after night. I think it's quite clear that was the reason he decided not to run again for re-election. I think he'd have been easily re-elected, but he had carried that burden for a long time. He knew that it was at war with the program he most honored, which is the war on poverty. He knew that it would dim his vision for a great society, which he coveted for America. And no one loved this country more than President Johnson. Look what he did, aside from Vietnam, civil rights. We made more gains on civil rights in this country under President Johnson than under any president in the last 100 years. Education. He used to say he'd like to be known as the education president, and he certainly gave it all the support he could muster. Housing was a love of his.